comes, he goes on a rainbow. He is the master of all things culture and movies. It's Michael Snyder, and it's always good to discuss movies and television with the folks Blaster.
Hey, Mo, and hi, Kim. I don't know where you are. You're probably getting ready for the after party live, or just who knows what, maybe sipping some Coachella Valley tea.
Oh, I'm sipping my tea. That's what I'm doing.
Sounds good. You know, it's Memorial Day weekend, and I want to take a moment and remember and memorialize when Mark Thompson used to host a show on Fridays. Oh, my God. We miss him
which
so
one
much.
you use, Mark Thompson?
Just kidding, Mo. We love having you on board. I hope people enjoy their holiday break, but remember why we actually celebrate, and that's to honor those who sacrificed their lives to preserve our nation and its highest ideals. You know, we got to stay vigilant. There are so many, and a lot of them within our borders, who are actively trying to undermine democracy and curtail our freedoms. And we've got a beyond crucial election coming up in November that is imperiled by these bad guys. But anyway, I digress. I can't wait to have a burger, an impossible burger maybe, but a burger nonetheless at some barbecue. And incidentally, the 4-day Arroyo Psychedelic Music Festival is happening in LA's Highland Park this Memorial Day weekend. And it's going to kick off tonight when my buddies in the legendary Flamin' Groovies from San Francisco originally take the stage at Lodge Room to celebrate the 50th anniversary of their crucial Shake Some Action album. That song, the title song, is considered one of the greatest rock tracks in history by all of those who know. And they're going to be at the Lodge Room alongside Levitation Room, the Darts and Windows. There's a lot of shows this weekend featuring the likes of Fear, the Adolescents, the Warlocks, Mike Watt, many more bands at Lodge Room, Oblivion, the Highland Park E-Bell, or the Cheerio Collective. You can find out information at arroyopsychedelic.com. You know, I am kind of upset about this $2 billion slush fund. I really am, Mo. I mean, I'd like to apply for some money, but it never snows where I live. You know, no slush, no payout. It's kind of frustrating. Anyway, down to business. Let's talk about movies. We'll kick off with The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is the highest profile film opening this weekend. And it is the latest movie in the gazillion-dollar Star Wars science fiction franchise. And it's actually the first film to be released in a while that's set, how can we put this, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But in fact, it's a continuation of the recent and well-loved Star Wars TV series, The Mandalorian, starring Pedro Pascal and a couple of stunt actors as Din Djarin, a noble mercenary in indestructible armor who ends up adopting a baby from the same race of the sage telepathic Yoda character. You know, you're familiar with Yoda from the Star Wars movies. You know, in that dynamic, this is very much like Japan's Lone Wolf and Cub samurai stories about a wandering samurai who is pushing a baby in a little cart and preserving the child. But there's a galactic twist, of course, here. And in the wake of 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, the first one was great. The second 2, not quite up to that level. But we find Mando and Grogu, which is the name of the little Yoda-type character, working for the Rebel Alliance after the fall of the Empire. And an officer of the Alliance, played by Sigourney Weaver, sends our heroic duo to speak with the twin siblings of the late villain Jabba the Hutt, that big kind of slug-like creature from the first 4 Star Wars movies. And the Mandalorian is supposed to learn the whereabouts of one Imperial warlord who got away from the rebels and is plotting to return to power. But Mando learns that these twins, these siblings of Jabba the Hutt, have banished the kid, Jabba's son and heir, Rada the Hutt, and he is tasked with rescuing Rada from the missing warlord. So, you know, the stakes just don't feel really high for a big, sprawling feature film, but this is technically dazzling. It's upbeat fun. the whole family can go see it, and the action on the IMAX screen is thrilling. And, Mo Grogu is so cute that he'd even grow on Phoenix. And, he's an animatronic and, puppet. They have a little bit of computer generated animation involved, but it actually works. He has so much personality. This is junk food. It's product. It's merchandise bait. It's fan service. But, it was fun. It's a standalone on some levels, but it would be more impactful for people familiar with the characters and their journey from those 3 seasons of the TV show. The Mandalorian and Grogu is in theaters nationwide. I don't know if you're a big fan of the franchise. Oh, by the way, the voice of Rada the Hutt, Jeremy Allen White, Carmy from The Bear. How about that for a curveball?
Let me jump in there. I saw it last night, and I've seen all this the seasons of The Mandalorian. I do not share the same opinion as you. We know that Jabba the Hutt did not speak any English in the Star Wars franchise, so hearing Rada the Hutt speak in monologues in English was weird for me. Grogu, there's a second act in the movie which is all about Grogu, and it says to me that it's just about merchandising and selling Grogu dolls. I get it. It just seemed, and you kind of hinted this, and you hit on this, the stakes were not that high, given the story that is told, but it's marketed as if that the events of the movie may help prevent the Empire from coming back. I saw it. It would have been fine on streaming. I didn't need to see it in the theater. That's all I'll say.
Well, we sort of agreed on the quality level of it, I think. And to me, seeing it in a theater was enhancing what is otherwise, just a continuation of the TV show.
Right.
So
right.
I think we actually agree.
Yeah, I'd say we agree.
But that said, let's move on. I want to talk about a movie called I Love Boosters. And it is the latest film from writer-director Boots Riley, a Bay Area product. And it is set in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area. And it's basically about a bunch of shoplifters. And they're wild and manic. And they do absurd things when they enter a store and begin their methodical rip-offs. And, it's funny at times. It's very manic. There's a lot of socio-political commentary or content, which is reflective of Riley's first film, his previous movie, Sorry to Bother You, which I actually think is a better film. But it's hard to hate this thing. There's funky, down and dirty dialogue. There's slapstick humor. Speaking of science fiction, there is a science fiction element to this, which is completely loony. There are weird animated sequences. And there is a socio-political content to it that actually resonates in a big way, particularly now when we're confronted with so many problems across this nation. It's also kind of a takedown of the fashion industry, as these shoplifters all work at a branch of a very upscale designer's store chain. And by the way, she's played by, of all people, and we love her, the ever popular Demi Moore. We got Don Cheadle as the tout for a pyramid scheme, Will Poulter as one of the, lieutenants of this designer who is running one of the outlets where the women who are part of this crew of shoplifters all work. The women are played by Kiki Palmer, Naomi Aki, Taylor Page is on board, Isaac Gonzalez, Lakeith Stanfield plays kind of a romantic interest for the Kiki Palmer character. I really enjoyed this while I was watching it. And I appreciated the shout out to downtrodden workers in retail and sweatshops. The science fiction elements, which involve teleportation and the weird animated excerpts of it, kind of were confusing to me on some level, because it just played into an occasional incoherence. There were leaps of logic. But, sometimes you just have to sit back and go along for a ride. And I want to encourage people to support independent cinema and upcoming filmmakers. And I thought it was worth checking out. And it was fun. And it comes at you at rapid fire pace. And again, the actors are all damn good. And, I give this a tentative recommendation. It is in theaters across the country. It's called I Love Boosters. Let's move on to a film that I thought was probably the best of the three we've discussed so far. It's called Tuner. And it is the latest movie and the first narrative movie from Daniel Roher, who has won an Academy Award in documentaries. And this is the guy who is the central figure and one of the two directors of the AI doc. And here he takes on a story, and it's a story about a young piano tuner working with a veteran piano tuner. And this guy, played by the young actor Leo Woodall, has perfect pitch and hearing so acute that he has to wear plugs that can control the volume. And nonetheless, there's never been a piano tuner so superb as this character, played by Woodall. And his mentor, Harry, is played by Dustin Hoffman. And we see them going through their paces and going to their various clients in New York. And he gets the attention of what look like security people at one of the fancy mansions where they go to work and do the piano tuning. And the head of this group of thuggish security people decides to enlist this kid as a safecracker because they all get access to these upscale homes and mansions, and there are always safes there. And his hearing is so acute that he's sort of a natural at breaking into safes. And this turns this movie that seems like an unexpectedly original character portrait into a caper movie. There's a young woman that he meets during one of his assignments. She's a concert pianist. It turns out that our hero is also a superb musician, but he had to quit because the sound of the piano was so brutal on his ears. It's really a movie like none I've seen before. And kudos to Rohrer and his co-screenwriter, Robert Ramsey. And I have to say, Woodall is a rising star. He was in Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy. He had a small role in Nuremberg. But, with him and Dustin Hoffman on board, this really worked for me in a big way. And I would say it's a beautiful, fascinating, and exciting movie. And I love a caper movie. I love heist films. And so that element really thrilled me. Let's say that we should support movies like this. It is in select theaters starting today. It's called Tuner. We always have horror movies in store most weeks, and one called Passenger I didn't have a chance to see, but we do have an interesting indie horror film called Saccharine, which reminded me a lot of Stephen King's Thinner and had elements of The Substance. It deals with body horror and body image. A young woman who is, I guess, a medical student, and she has a crush on her trainer at the local gym. She feels uncomfortable in her own body, and she finds out about what might be a weight loss cure, but it's something very bizarre, and it involves eating human ashes. And I know that's kind of grisly stuff. And when she does pursue this weight loss program, if you will, she begins to be haunted by one of the cadavers that she's working on as a medical student, a very corpulent thing that comes to her and feeds off of her hunger. And, it's a strange movie. It had kind of relationship to the Asian myth of the hungry ghost, and the performances are pretty wonderful, particularly the lead character played by Midori Francis. She's named Hannah, and there's supporting work by the Aussie actress Danielle McDonald and a few other really talented young performers. And it is written and directed by Natalie Erica James, who did a pretty impressive first film called Relic and did the decent Rosemary's Baby prequel from a couple years ago. It kind of goes off the rails in its finale. There's a lot of explicit, gory moments, and there's a lot of sex, which may put some people off. But, we love sex, but when it's up on the big screen, there are some among us who are made a little on the uncomfortable side. But I thought that it was worth supporting. The movie, again, is called Saccharine. It's in limited release. And let's kind of wrap things up with two more films that I thought were worth covering. One is called Giant. And Giant continues Pierce Brosnan's very impressive Golden Years third act. He plays a trainer in this true life story of Prince Nassim Naz Hamed, who ends up becoming a championship boxer under the direction of this his trainer, played by Pierce Brosnan. And the guy is named Brendan Ingle, and he's an Irishman who lives in Sheffield, the industrial town in northern England. And he takes this, I guess he's Middle Eastern, this Middle Eastern kid under his wing, and sees in him the skills of a championship boxer, and he helps him become a world champion. And so that's the story, and we see their interaction. And, there is a kind of a white savior trope here, as this old Irishman mentors this young man of color, but it is based on the real story. And this unlikely partnership is pretty amazing, as is the kid's style, which reminded me a little bit of Muhammad Ali, a lot of dancing in the ring and what have you. And he was massively successful. So again, it's a true story. And there is the undercurrent of all the Islamophobia in England during the 80s and 90s, which gives it a little bit of gravitas. I would say, as boxing movies go, this is not a knockout, but Brosnan is wonderful. The young actor playing the boxer kid, Amir El Masri, as Nassim Hamed, he's really pretty great. And this is a movie that will play well at home, I think, and it is actually already available for video on demand streaming. It's also in select theaters. It's called Giant. And to wrap things up, just in brief, let's talk about Reckless, which is a crime movie with a little bit of comedy to it about a former convict who gets out on parole. He had been arrested for a robbery. He had been kind of set up by the people that he'd worked with on an armored truck robbery. And he gets out. He never spilled the beans, but he never got his piece of the action. So he's out free, ready to go. This is set in the UK, by the way. And we get Vinnie Jones as a mob boss who is ultimately the guy behind the betrayal. Scott Adkins as Devon, the ex-con who's looking to get paid. And this had a lot of Guy Ritchie vibes to it. And the presence of Vinnie Jones as the mob boss just invites kind of less than flattering comparisons with Ritchie's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch. It had that early Guy Ritchie crime-oriented action comedy vibe to it. Not anywhere near as good, but it's a diversion, I suppose. It's a bit on the hacky side. This is one of those not terrible Michael Snyder, the Mark Thompson Show. Reckless is, again, in theaters, select ones, and available for streaming right now if it sounds like something that would interest you. And that's what we've got in terms of films.
Michael Snyder, this is a really interesting list because I feel personally connected to a lot of the movies. I gave you my thoughts about The Mandalorian and Grogu. I saw it last night. I think it's fine for Disney Plus, but if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, it's going to feel just more of a continuation of the TV show and smaller than what you're accustomed to for Star Wars movies. But
Again, yeah. Low stakes, and you're right about that. But seeing it as I did on the big screen, I was caught up in it. But that didn't stop me from seeing the flaws.
Mm-hmm. I Love Boosters, set in the Bay Area. It's about shoplifters. It's funny at times, socio-political commentary. There's also a takedown of the fashion industry. The cast, a lot of well-known names, including Demi Moore, Don Cheadle, Keke Palmer, that leads the way. You say that there are some leaps of logic, but worth the ride. So I've long been a fan of those particular actors and actresses And Keke Palmer is one of the rare stories of someone who started off as a child actor and has never lost any momentum in her adult career. So I'm pulling for her and glad that she's been successful. So I'm going to check out I Love Boosters.
Yeah,
And
yeah. She is the quintessence of sassy,
Mm,
Mo.
and check this out, Michael. You may not know this, but I'm the son of two music teachers. My father was an instrumental music teacher, my mother, a vocal music teacher. I have perfect pitch. And for those who don't know what perfect pitch is, like if you were to ask me to sing an E on the piano, I can sing that song. I can sing the note, and it's going to be exactly what you hear on the piano. That's and there's also relative perfect pitch, but I'm not going to get into that. The point is, the movie Tuner is about a young piano tuner turned safecracker due to his hearing ability inclusive of perfect pitch. That's all you needed to say to me, Michael, because that means I need to see the story. Now, I may nitpick, but when you have a caper or a heist movie and you also involve music, there's nothing for me not to like going in.
Yeah, it's clearly the best film of the bunch that we're talking about today. No question about it.
There's Saccharine, which is an indie horror film. You said it was reminiscent of Thinner for those who might be of the Stephen King persuasion. And The Substance, there's body horror in this. But you say it goes off the rails in the third act. It's a limited release, but you say it's worth supporting. And there's the age-old debate. Is it a good movie if it doesn't end well, but the rest of the movie was good? Or is the whole movie bad because the third act is flawed? So we'll leave it up to other viewers. I tend to think I need a good third act because that's the last taste which is left in my mouth.
Right. I do want to also say Midori Francis is the main character. Hannah is fantastic. So, I agree with you. It's hard to walk out of a movie that has kind of a questionable third act and feel, oh, yeah, I could recommend this. But, it does have merit. I just don't want to dump on something that is ambitious. We'll see where this goes.
Giant. And you may not know this, I'm also almost like a quasi-boxing historian. So I know in general the story of Prince Nassim Hamed. He was an electric fighter. He's still living, but he was thought to be the next great fighter in the vein of a Sugar Ray Leonard, a Floyd Mayweather, even a Roy Jones Jr. He was flashy, he was flamboyant, he was over the top, he would troll his opponents in the ring. When you say the Prince, he was like the clown prince of boxing. If you know his history. So I'm already in because of that. And I would probably want to watch Giant because of Pierce Brosnan, who I respect and love as an actor. And also the story of Prince Nassim Hamed told through the eyes of his trainer.
Yeah, I have to say, Pierce Brosnan has been doing amazing work lately. If you haven't watched the Mobland TV series where he plays a gang boss and his Moll is played by Helen Mirren, you are missing out. I'm glad to see him doing great work. Prince, as he called himself, definitely had some Ali vibes about it. The taunting, the footwork, all of that was pretty appealing and interesting. And obviously he was a charismatic boxer. And it's another boxing movie, but it's a story that I didn't know that I was glad to now learn.
He seemed to have just lost his motivation to fight somewhere along the way. So I definitely want to see that movie. And we closed out with Reckless, which is a crime movie, has some comedy. It's set in the UK, and it stars Vinnie Jones and the legendary martial artist Scott Adkins. If you don't know, he's one of the best performing martial artists in movie history. As far as ability, you might have seen him in any number of movies without showing his face. He was in Wolverine opposite Hugh Jackman. He played the original version of Deadpool in that movie. He's one of the greatest cinematic martial artists of our generation.
Yeah, there's not enough of that on display to make up for the fact that it's just kind of a mediocre movie comedy-wise. But yes, you're right. And thank you for pointing that out. I should have mentioned that people wouldn't be familiar with him to an extent from his previous film work. And he is, on the athletic side, one of the greats in terms of that kind of sport.
And there you have it, the Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder. That was fantastic. You give me like 3 or 4 movies I just got to see soon. One I already have seen.
Well, let's close out now, but I do want to mention Rivals on Hulu in its 2nd season. It is hilarious and fun. It's based on Dame Julie Cooper's Rutshire Chronicles. It stars David Tennant as a veritable bastard, the head of one of these regional TV stations in Maggie Thatcher's 1980s UK. The area where he's based and is in competition with another station for the attention of the national audience is the Cotswolds. So it's very country lifestyle, aristocrats and the nouveau riche, and everybody's screwing everybody else. And the cast is fantastic. Alex Hassel as Rupert Campbell Black, the enemy of the David Tennant character. There are some really hilarious moments. It's so much fun. It's the 2nd season of Rivals on Hulu. It's joyful viewing, at least for me. And it has a lot of great 80s music on the soundtrack. So if that's your jam, I would check out Rivals.
Michael, you came in on a rainbow. Before you leave on a rainbow, I just have to thank you for all you do. This is a wonderful selection this week.
Hey, happy to do it. And the Giants are back at Oracle Park. You can check out my stuff on thevoicesf.org. I currently have a piece about The Audacity, the great TV series. And we'll be back next Friday.
All right. Much, Mike.